Welcome to the Devil's Podcast. I'm HeYamin.
I'm Andromeda.
And today we're talking about witchcraft, which we had already started talking about it. That was like, we should probably start recording what we're saying.
It's like, huh.
Yeah. We're starting with a broad topic, and then I'm sure it'll develop as we go.
Yeah.
We were talking about Gemma Gary, though.
Yes.
Gemma Gary's work.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Devil's Dozen, the Toad, the Black Toad. And there's a few other works by her that I want to get that I've seen.
I feel like her work is really foundational for British witchcraft.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like there's some amazing stuff in her work that just when you're looking at like witchcraft as a whole, there's like different phases, and I think there's so many different types of like covens and ways to run covens. Mm-hmm. There's the Gardnerian method, there's traditional devil worship, you could do even larger, without it being a lodge, you could do lodge work, you can do draconian work. Like there's so much to what you can do with a coven itself. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look at Michael W. Ford, his work, he really, his coven. I think it's a Russian word, I think, or is it the type of witchcraft he's done? I can't remember what it's.
I'm not as familiar with.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called, like where it's from, but the word is like Ankia or something, which to me sounds Ukrainian, but it also sounds like Middle Eastern too. I could be butchering that, but his coven was, there was a lot. I don't know if it's still going, but there was a lot to it that was, traditional in ways, but also adding all the elements of the things that he was practicing, and he did a lot of work with different draconian practitioners who write books and stuff, I'm spacing Carlson, and I can't remember Thomas Carlson, and like other practitioners. There's tons, and he's put out a lot of work. But that we're not talking about draconian stuff. We're talking about witchcraft. So it's like
you're always going to add draconian stuff anytime.
I'm obsessed. So like when you look at witchcraft, like what are you looking at when you?
Well, I think of like the Strigoi and the what are they? I don't remember what they're called. The Roma, those witches. I'm butchering it. I know I am. I think of them and like how traditional their practices, especially with the hexing and healing, the same people. Mm-hmm. Someone will come to them to hex someone, and then that person will come to them to heal, and they're just Yeah. Oh, you want to hex? Sure. Oh, you want to heal? Yeah, I know that too. Which I think knowing how to fix the hexes, if you're gonna hex, is a really important thing, because you need to know how to fix things,
how to undo the things you've done.
Yeah. But it's also important to know how to hex, even if you're never going to hex, because you can't heal something or someone if you don't know how that happened in the first place. Yeah,
and no, I totally get that. When I think of like there is, I don't think there's any like true witchcraft, because Welsh witchcraft is one of the things that I'm learning, and I know Mark knows Welsh witchcraft and practices it quite regularly, from what I've heard from him. Mm-hmm. And I work with Bronwyn, and I've developed a style of working with her. I feel like it's still growing, but it's like one of those things where it's like, when I work with her, it's different than when I work with, Lilith or Lucifer, or, Draconians, or, the beings that I'm working with. And it's and in witchcraft, there's so many different deities. I mean, when
Well,
we
in paganism, you don't even have to
yeah
work with deities to
yeah
be a witch, to practice witchcraft.
yeah
I think that's an important distinction to make because so often people conflate paganism with witchcraft, but in
mm,
reality, especially there's some branches of Wicca where they believe that deities are just energies, energy
mm,
currents, and they're calling in the energy current of the god and the goddess rather than a specific
yeah.
being.
And that's the normal way that things get worked through in from what I've seen is like they work with the god and the goddess, and they don't really put much limitation on whatever that is or however that's coming through. Though, when I was in a coven, we worked with many different deities of
Yes.
many different kinds. You know, every ritual was someone else.
I feel like it can become almost too overloaded with the amount, especially when you're doing it every month, a different deity. I feel like you can almost overload yourself with all those energies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and nothing against what they were doing, but there's like when you're working with a coven, there should always be a goal. Like you should have a driving force of what you're trying to accomplish. Any magical group, anything you're doing should cult or
Well,
secret society or whatever you got going on. There should always be some sort of goal. There's no point in not having a goal to the work. And if you don't have a goal to the work of the group, and everybody's involvement and understanding of what the goal is and what you're trying to do or you're trying to accomplish in every ritual or what have you, you know, like what is either here or there with the work. I think it's important that be seen in the work, and there, and that's just my personal opinion. Some people just want to get together and dance around a fire. Some people want to get together and get wealthy. Some people want to get together and just do magic for the
for the sake of doing
spiritual growth and
it.
practice, and yeah, for the sake of doing it. And
Yeah.
and just like in Wicca, it's a Sunday service for most people. It's a you're just
They
doing it
going
for
through
religious.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's funny. One story I heard was of this coven that was created, and these women that it was a women's coven, and they became such good friends that they stopped doing the rituals and the spell work, and they just became like turn it into like a get together group, and it just kind of devolved into this big friendship, which is it's absolutely hilarious to me because probably what these women were doing when getting into this group were looking for connections, looking for friendships, and they got what they were looking for. And at some point, they were like, "Oh, you remember when we used to do spells and witchcraft?" And they were
Yeah.
like, "Oh, we should do that again." And so they started back up. But I think it's absolutely hilarious because they were like, "Oh, we failed." No, you didn't. You created something
Yeah.
with this group, and look what you created. That's very fulfilling, actually. I think it should be noted that being a solitary witch is actually perfectly fine as well. Sometimes it is fun to do group witchcraft and rituals, but sometimes you can need that time of being solitary and being alone. And if you don't want to join a coven, if you don't want to join a group, that's pretty good, actually. It's not a bad thing. But also, I think, if you join a group and you don't like what is happening in it, it's perfectly fine to leave and become solitary again, because that's your path. It's not the group's path. You may join a group for some time, but ultimately you're the one that you have to look out for. You're the one that you need to take care of, and you need to feel like your goals and your aim are what is being fulfilled.
Yeah, and when you're looking at like magical practice, most people are solitary, and the reason why people join covens is usually to grow with a group or learn more, or be a part of something different, or even just to follow suit of what other people want to do magically and just learn and experience it. Because that's the thing too. And when I left the coven and I started working with my magic, even though I do stuff with Circle of the Dark Mother, it's a lot of my stuff is solitary magic that I'm doing work by myself, and I'm focused on the work I'm doing by myself. And I was prior to leaving the coven too. There was a lot of room for me to just do my own thing. And one day I'd like to run a coven. I'd like to have my own coven, and I don't want to do that right now, but I do want to do it in the future, and I know I will. I know it's going to be a thing. But
Yeah.
I mean, there's other stuff too that I'm working on that has to do with that kind of stuff, but it's not, it's running down the pipe. It's not ready yet. But yeah, no, and it's and when we're looking at witchcraft itself, just like Andromeda said, it's not, covens are not the end all
the be all end all or ultimate
of
goal.
what you're looking for. Some people's best magic is done in the dark by themselves, and I think that when we don't have conflicting energies, when we don't have people who doubt us in our ritual circle doing magic with us, or look down on us or belittle us, or what have you. And I'm not saying that's normal. I'm just saying that could happen because you're dealing with groups, or people don't believe in you, or people look down on you, or what have you. Or in a good group, it would be uplifting if everybody looks at everybody in a way where it's like, they believe in their power, they believe in their ability, and if that person feels down about themselves, they're lifting them up. Oftentimes when magic is done, if you're working with the right people, they're going to help you with magic if you're working with the right people.
Yeah.
So, but with witchcraft, there's so much to it. Like, and you can look at the broadness of just magic itself. But witchcraft is, its own flavor.
Yeah. I mean, I was really almost obsessed with joining a coven, finding a group to practice witchcraft with, and I was actually disillusioned because I wanted to be part of something greater than myself, and there were some really great rituals. There were some really very uplifting and healing and powerful rituals that were done, but for the most part it felt as though I felt as though there was an element of part of the group not wanting to branch out and wanting to do the same ritual every single month, and the other part of the group wanting to do more, and so there was a conflict. And as we as time went on, it became so noticeable that I felt like I was becoming stagnant within the coven. Like, I wasn't reaching beyond and doing more because there were those factions within the group that were like, I think they were getting upset when we were doing some of the more intense rituals.
We weren't even really connected to any of the people in there. So, but yeah, no. And, I don't want to really talk about them.
Okay.
That's why I don't care. But like when we're talking about witchcraft, we're talking about, anyone's practice. You can practice Egyptian magic. You can practice, like, witchcraft is so broad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's what I was getting at is
Yeah.
there's you can do anything, and if you work at it in a method that, you know, fits into witchery in some way. Like you can do, you know, Native American work, right? You can do work that's I'm not saying go, you know, just do this, but you know, there's witchcraft in every culture. There's a form of
Yeah.
witchcraft.
If it's your culture, definitely like delve into it.
Well,
And even if it's not your culture,
if you feel
if you come
called to
in
it,
contact with those spirits,
yeah,
those beings, and especially if you're integrated into a group, led to a group of people and integrated into them, you know, don't let yourself be held back by your own fears of what might happen.
yeah.
It's sometimes you can find some really powerful uh I lost my train of thought.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
Like powerful experiences and
Yeah.
teachers and stuff
Yeah.
that are going to teach you, you know, and ways to learn and experience. Like now, I've said this multiple times in different places, but now is the most like one of the times where we have gotten the most amount of information. There is so much available. I mean, maybe not at Library of Alexandria level, but you know, we're in a time where there is so much ability to practice and time of information. Everybody wants to share their experience with what have you, with magic, witchcraft, you know, uh, any form of, you know, spirituality. You can find it on the internet. You can find books, you know, or you can just sit and meditate and find it for yourself. But you know, it's not like it's the best time to practice.
It's
It
not like
really
it was
is.
in the
Yeah,
90s,
yeah.
like when we were growing up. I remember
Couldn't
just,
find it.
you know, even in the 2000s, I was in high school, you know, like in like, you know, till 2003 actually. I'm aging myself here. um and you couldn't find anything. There was one girl. Well, there were a couple people. There were some Wiccans that were really like, oh, you need to join our group. Wicca is the thing. And then there was like one other girl who was like out with being a witch. She would do palm readings and tarot readings, and I loved hanging out with her. But she wouldn't share what she was reading. She would kind of be standoffish about sharing her spiritual practice or anything of the sort because there was a real taboo about those things. And you go to, you know, bookshops and stuff, and it was so hard to find anything on paganism or witchcraft or anything of the sort up until, you know, around the 2010s is when I started noticing it more, like more available and more books being written that were, you know, not hidden away and, you know.
Yeah, it's more upfront. Like you can go into Barnes and Nobles and find, you know, tons of books on witchcraft. You know, they have whole sections on magic. There's some pretty interesting, like, you know, do what you want, but there isn't really a, you know, if there isn't some place where you can get books, you can always go to Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing is nowadays, like, all of the used booksellers, like, I use thrift books all the time because you can get such good deals on books on there.
Yeah.
And I've been using that for years, and I've gotten so much spiritual books and knowledge. I've even gotten some novels and stuff that I wanted to read from that seller, and it's just amazing. You know, they literally have everything, and Amazon has so many spiritual books. Like I've published a book through Amazon, you know, and I you know, there's more in the future, but it's like, you know, I'm not. You get everywhere. Like you literally, like you can go into. I've seen tarot cards in the weirdest places.
Yeah.
Like I've seen tons of stuff in the weirdest places, and it's just like, okay, you know, and nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's one of those times where, you know, maybe maybe some people in some parts of the world would have to travel, half the half the world, or long distance to find this
We're
stuff.
not even able
And
to get it.
I understand that, and there's nothing like, I feel like that is going to change. I feel like the world is getting more and more open, more and more pathways are opening for people. The and this is not just in the Western world. I feel like it's throughout the entire world. There's so much changing. We're moving towards like the world being, global, truly global, in a lot of senses, and nothing wrong with that. I think the more connected we are, yeah. Unless there's the people who don't want to be connected, let them
Yeah.
live in their villages and not have internet, and live happy lives without having Instagram on their cell phone, with a cracked screen, and they're scrolling all day. And we don't do that. But I'm just saying, like, you don't we don't need to poison the well of people who are have healthy minds. They're not watching YouTube shorts all day long.
I watch YouTube shorts a lot, though. I shouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's bad. But I'm making a point here, It's like, there's and those people are practicing witchcraft. We wouldn't even know. Like, you travel to one of those villages, there's probably a healer in there, someone there that if you were like, hey, I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life to learning everything you have to know, they'd probably teach you.
Mm-hmm.
They probably would. They'd probably tell you, white boy, I want you to walk the other direction because that's the side of you I like to see. And then if you keep coming back every day and just sit in front of his house and just be like, dude, I'm here.
I'm here again.
Maybe after a year he might teach you.
It'd be kind of like Granny Weatherwax.
He throws a fish at you every day.
Yeah,
like,
it makes me think of Granny Weatherwax, like Terry Pratchett's Discworld novels, where she was just so cantankerous. But if there was someone that was like, they had the power, she was like, I'm watching you.
Oh my god, that's so bad. Yeah, and like when we're looking at like cultures, when we're looking at like when I practice rune work and I work with the runes, I work with the currents of the runes, I work with them in divination and magic, etc. And in meditation too, because there's a lot to that. But when you're diving into this stuff and you're doing the work of, say, like, you can pick up a book on any sort of type of witchcraft, because there's so much, and you can pick up a book, and that and if you like it, you just scratch the surface on the information you can get. And practice is important too. It's not like you just need to read books and you'll know everything, because there's a lot of scholarly people who don't practice, and I get that. I have friends who are that way. Mm-hmm. But the point of this knowledge is not just the understanding of having the knowledge in your brain. It's being able to practice it. And when we look at all of the modalities, you pick up a book and you practice one or two things out of it, and if you like it, you go deeper. You go further in. That's how I've worked a lot in my life. When I first, this is going to sound bad, when I first started doing ritualistic work on my own, I was doing Enochian invocations, in the back of an old house with some incense lit, and it was
jumping at the deep end.
Yeah, I had some crazy experiences, and that's what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. I had already been scrying and working with beings for a while, but I did I full on was like, and I had an intense experience with that, and I won't go into details, but it was an intense experience, and I didn't do that specific thing again. But I did do, I did start doing work, and it's like you find little things and you're like, okay, I'm going to try that, and finding your path, because you could, you could use grimoires as a method in which you're using your witchcraft. It's not just you could. It's more like witchcraft itself is the basis for like your practice, because magic is a broad term. You can say I practice magic, but when you're looking at like folk magic or witchcraft or what have you, you can literally take any real system of magic and apply it into witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing holding you back from that.
I mean, I think magic is just science we haven't understood yet.
Oh, yeah.
I know that's a common quote of just like magic is science we just haven't understood yet. But it's funny because in one of my classes, it was on religion and ritual, and we were watching a documentary on the I'm going to butcher this name, Tobrianders. The Tobriander Islanders, I think that's the way you pronounce it. And the chief's son, actually, I believe he went to Oxford, and he got a diploma, like he got his bachelor's degree, and came back, and he was applying, his scientific research while also doing the magical workings. And he was just like, well, magic is like the fertilizer. The scientific practices are going to work. You also know that the magic is going to work. You may get your results with the scientific application, but when you apply magic on top of that, you're going to get double or triple the results. You're going to get so much more out of it. And I think that that's such a great way to look at it, because without magic, it is a little bit two-dimensional, I feel, like personally, but I've always been a spiritual person. Like even before I started doing witchcraft, I was doing pendulum work, and I had experiences with like dreams and spirits, and I had my friends would come to me and be like, I had this dream, can you interpret it for me? And I would tell them, and they'd be like, well, they'd be like, oh, okay. But then, several months later, they come back and be like, that thing, I did what you said and it worked. Thank you. Or they'd be like, that was creepy. I never want to talk about that again. Okay. Like moving on. Yeah. There's kind of like two different schools of thought of like, okay, I'm never doing that again, or thank you, let's do that again.
Yeah, I think it's, I grew up spiritual even though I was Christian, I was spiritual. I was, plugged into the work of my spiritual practice, what have you. Yeah, I think that's why when I got into spirituality and meditation, I was like, oh, this is so much better. This is, what I was looking for anyways. And then I got into witchcraft. I'm like, oh, okay, like I can apply this skill into, my first book on magic was a witchcraft book. It was a non-denominational, multi-denominational Wicca Bible. And it was great. I read that thing in like 3 or 4 days, and then I read it again, and then I got more books. And, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, like I can see how these things make sense. And when we're looking at like going from 0 to 60, when we're going from knowing nothing to knowing enough to be on the freeway, 65, when that's the case, you just, it's not just study, it's applying the things you learned. Like if you're looking at, and this is daunting, but you're looking at Golden Dawn work, and you look at all of the thick books that offer you information about Golden Dawn, and when in reality all you need is the rituals and just start the work. But there's so much information regarding that work. regarding Israel regarding. So there's so much information in that you can apply to that. And people say, Richard has said that being initiated into the practice makes it much more potent. And I'm quite positive that is 100% true. That with anything,
Yeah.
but because you're connecting to a lineage, you're connecting to a group, like you're fully connecting to being brought into the power of the thing, but you look at any source of information. So you could literally buy the most basic Wicca book and just, like I said, practice something out of it, and then apply that knowledge to your daily life, or apply your spell work to your daily life, or your ritual work. Starting with, and this is just for the sake of, if people don't practice and they want to start doing it. When I started a year's worth of practice, I was doing new moon rituals every month. And, and I started with the most basic thing, and they were getting more advanced by the end. And I had done tons of study prior to this, and I wasn't going off of anything specific from any book or anything like that. I was just like, hey, I'm just going to do this. And that got me started. And, a year of that may sound daunting to a lot of people. I did miss a month or so, a month or two. But, all you're doing is setting up the ritual space, and if you're writing a petition, you're burning it, make sure to take the fire alarms down, or, what have you.
I've set up the fire alarm more than once.
Yeah, I set off. I woke at my old apartment. I woke my downstairs neighbor up so many times when I was burning petitions. But or when I was doing draconian work in that same apartment, and I'm doing things, and she's like, one time I remember her saying, I heard someone just really loudly mumbling things last night. I was like, oh, okay.
It was your imagination.
I was working on music. That's what. But anyways, so when you're doing like and you can start with a basic, set up a circle, dedicate a candle, maybe put some oil on it, and then invoke the goddess or the god, or or even an angel if you feel comfortable only with that, or if a demon if you feel more comfortable with that. You invoke a power, and you sit with it and feel it in that space, because you will feel it. If you have the intention to succeed, you will feel it. If you're even people who are on the fence are like, oh, this won't work, they oftentimes will feel something. Because I've even given work for people that I work with. I've given them rituals, and they're like, I don't know if this is gonna help, and then like 3 days in, they're like, oh, it helped.
Yeah.
And they still had days left, and they were skeptical if they were going to get what they were asking for, with the ritual work. But they felt the presence, they felt the thing happening, and the movement happened before they were even done. And I'm not bragging. I'm just saying that this is like, this work can happen even if you don't believe it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to remain skeptical, because if you just go into it with like a complete acceptance, and you're not having at least a small amount of skepticism, you're going to be let down, because you may expect something far greater than what you might end up getting.
Yeah.
And so going in with like skepticism of like, well, we'll see what happens, and we'll see how this goes, then you're going to be more like, you're probably going to be happier with what you get, and more excited by it, rather than just like falling in. And also, not having skepticism leads you into a mind frame where you can be taken advantage of by cultish behavior. So it's important.
Yeah,
it's a very important aspect to.
Well, and when asking for things, you should always there's a phrase I coined long ago that's, patience is waiting without expectation.
Yeah.
So if you're expecting it immediately, be patient.
Yeah.
And and that's the point of the magic itself, or the witchcraft, or the ritual, or the spell, or or the meditation, is to change yourself. And changing yourself allows you to change the outcome, or change change the world around you.
Mm-hmm.
You may think, oh, I need to do this spell, so for a big thing or a small thing, and you're doing work, and then you're continuing to do the work, and it may take you a year of doing solid work to obtain what you're trying to do or what you're trying to get. But in that time, that practice is going to change you so drastically. And when you're doing a dedicated practice, dedicated work, the change in yourself is the most important part for the thing to happen.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have the change in yourself, most of the times you're not going to have the thing happen. And if you, and the change could be for the better or for the worse,
It's
some
like
people
those people who are like, I'll change once this thing happens. And then the thing never happens because they refuse to change. You're going to remain stagnant if you're refusing to change in the first place.
Well, and there's no movement. Like if you're not elevating, if you're not growing, if you're not changing and evolving and doing, like, putting the work in is putting the work in yourself, and doing it magically will change you in the physical world. It will change you mentally. When I started doing the tree work of the bright tree and the dark tree, so the tree of life and the tree of death, when I started that work, I was like, okay, like this is going to be an undertaking. And then I got to where I'm at now, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is an undertaking, but I have so much of a handle on it. And I'm not saying that it's like easy. I'm saying I understand how the gears work and the mechanisms lock into place and how the energy sits. And I have my own system of how I work it. And I do the work, with reverence, and I feel connected to the practice. And, that's how anyone's magical practice will evolve as they apply the pressure and the leverage of their own work into it.
Yeah.
So
I think it's also important not to rush either, because if you're rushing, you could like cause some type of spiritual damage.
Yeah, and
so
preparedness is always.
Yeah.
But you can only be so prepared. Like when I when I first invoked Neshama and Lilith, and I was like, I'm gonna do this, and I didn't feel prepared. And I'm not saying to do that, but I'm saying when you're doing certain things, you're always going to have that pushback against you, because when you do it, it's going to change you so drastically. And I did so much work with her prior to prepare me for that. And when I kept doing the work, it kept changing me. And, when you receive the fires of Neshama, and, you're doing the work of like going into the trees, and you're and I'm not, this is even a form of witchcraft. It's a magical practice that is, a dedicated practice to your function, and it's not like when you do anything, like I was saying, when you do anything with your zeal, you go into it with you don't want to go into something with impunity. You want to be able to, like, even if you are, and not saying to apply pressure when you're fearing something, but allowing yourself to move past, because sometimes what we fear is not even the reality of the situation. And we have to look within ourselves to understand, okay, this is a rational thing, because this stuff can really change. I do not suggest just diving into the clip off, but either, the bright tree can be just as daunting and intense and, powerful, of course, as the clip off, both in hand in hand. But when you're doing the work of initiating yourself and going deeper into any tradition, any work, you're going to have that pushback mentally for most people. Most people were raised either Catholic, Christian, or Abrahamic in some way. So there's going to be, and especially when you're diving into, if you're going to the Bright Tree, a lot of Christians might feel comfortable with that.
Yeah.
But when you're diving into like witchcraft or something, you might go to initiate yourself or summon the devil or do something completely outlandish to what you would be thinking as a 12-year-old sitting in church. But when you do this stuff, there's going to be internally, there's going to be a pushback to keep you, because you've been programmed to think a certain way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think something that I wanted to bring up is that the market's kind of flooded with introductory books on witchcraft, and you can get a book and it can be like the next great witchcraft book, so informative, and then you go through it and it's like the same 10 spells as you got from the last 10 books that you read.
Yeah.
And I think that as you search and learn more, yeah, you're going to get those books where you're like, okay, this is the one. Okay, this is the one. And you're going to be like, oh, now I have 20 books that are all introductory. But when you really look at them, you're going to see there's variances. And then you're going to realize I can vary my spell work and build on it. Mm-hmm. And eventually you are going to come to a point where you've delved so deeply into witchcraft that you're going to be finding the books that are necessary and that you really want, because you're going to come upon a topic like Dion Fortune or Aleister Crowley, they're basically just different sides of the coin, really. But or Golden Dawn, you're going to come upon a topic that really piques your interest, and then you're going to start looking at those books, and that's going to lead you to more branching out. And I'm not saying that witchcraft leads to occultism, but in some way kind of does, I feel. Yeah. At least for me personally. But after some time, even if you're not looking further into these other things, you're going to start being able to rely on yourself more. You're going to see something and think, oh, I've used this in this spell before. I used that in a different one. If I combine these, I'm going to create something else, and this is the outcome that I could probably get. And this is why another way that witchcraft mirrors science is because you want to write that stuff down, because at some point you're going to want to come back and see what you did in that spell work that you did two years ago to make this new spell, this new ritual, and you're just building off of your own experience. And that's why so many people say that you can have all these books and not get any outcome with those spells because they're not yours.
Yeah.
You have to learn what works for you in order to be able to build and create more and better. And I do think it's important to have some type of community, even if you're not in a coven, even if you are very solitary. Joining a group on Discord or following YouTube channels or listening to podcasts or anything like that, where you're gaining that information, it's going to help you learn what works for you. It's like, making a cake. Some people might say, oh, this is too much milk, not that you add milk to cake, but sometimes you do. Where other people are going to be like, oh, no, it's too much flour. So it's about what works for you and how that cake is going to come out for you personally, if you think it's going to be too dry or too wet or anything like that. So it's how it works for you.
Yeah. Well, and that is the function of magic. Mm-hmm. Finding your own thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, when I was going to college, hopefully I can go back at some point in the future, when I was taking those classes in the science and biology there would be these, like our professors would say, okay, we're going to do these steps. And you would do the steps and it wouldn't work. But then you tweak something and it does work. And it's so funny how that works, because they'll come around and they'll be like, what did you do? And when you tell them, they're like, write that down. Because that's what works. No. If you can't tell them, that's a problem. Then they're like, go back and do it again and then write that down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, you don't have cards today.
I do not. I'm so tired right now.
It's fine. Well, we will end it here. Another awesome experience.
Yeah. Another late night podcast.
Another late night podcast where I'm gonna edit this up and put it up while I'm meditating.
Yep.
So, our links to everything are down below or on our bio on YouTube, because we're here on YouTube, and we're also on Amazon Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And the links should be below and working on those too. I've been trying to add timestamps to the videos too now. It kind of helps. So if I did that in this video, go me. And so if you have any interest, we have our Etsy's down below and on our bio on YouTube. And we have donation if you're interested in doing that. We have the Buy Me a Coffee. I think that's what we have on there. And all of our links to my website, HeYaminNeshama.com, is down below. Like, all of our links, they're available. You can get to them. I am tired, so I'm struggling. If you have any questions, you can comment and
ask
questions. Be
Always
curious.
Be curious.
Yep. And I think that covers everything.
Yeah.
And
if we forgot something, we apologize.
Yeah. So, well, so we'll close it. The darkness in me sees and honors the darkness in you. This has been the Doubles Podcast.